She left him with nothing but a diaper bag and a sticky note that read, "I'm still young. I can't live like this." That was the day my daughter-in-law walked out on her disabled baby, my grandson. Like he was a burden, not a blessing. She never looked back. Not when my son died. Not when that little boy learned to speak through machines. But 14 years later she came knocking. Not to see him but to beg for forgiveness. And what she saw when I opened that door made her knees buckle. My name is Marlene. I am 62 years old, a retired nurse, and I never imagined I would be changing diapers again in my 60s. Not for a newborn but for my grandson. Not because I wanted to relive motherhood, but because someone else decided she was done with it. The morning Jessica left, I was in the kitchen rinsing baby bottles. It was early March, chilly with frost on the windows and silence in the air. My son Ethan had taken the day off from the warehouse to help with Aiden's new feeding routine. That poor baby. He was barely 18 months old, still trying to say his first words when the doctors gave us the diagnosis. Cerebral palsy. Severe, life-altering, irreversible. Ethan was struggling. I could see it in the way he stared too long at nothing. But Jessica, she looked straight through Aiden like he was a bad decision she never agreed to. She had stopped coming to appointments, stopped asking questions. And that morning she stopped pretending. "I can't do this," she said flatly, walking past me in heels far too nice for a therapy session. "Do what?" I asked, drying my hands with a dish towel. Her purse was over her shoulder, lipstick on, phone in hand. This life, the appointments, the machines, the diapers, the silence, all of it. "I am still young, Marlene. I cannot live like this." I blinked. "Jessica, he is your son." She looked at me the way someone looks at an unpaid bill. An inconvenience, not a responsibility. "He is a situation, and I am not built for this kind of sacrifice." "Then why did you even?" "I thought he would be normal," she snapped, grabbing her coat. "I thought this would pass." The kitchen fell silent except for the gurgle of the formula warmer. My heart pounded in my ears, but I kept my voice steady. "He is not a phase, Jessica. He is a person." She sighed like I had said something ridiculous. "Tell Ethan I left him the car. I will call my lawyer about the rest. The rest, my things, my name, whatever he wants to fight over. I do not care. I am done. Where are you going?" She turned her head just enough to say, "Anywhere but here." And she walked out. I stood there still holding the towel, not moving. My hands trembled. I felt cold, not from the air, but from the realization that this woman just walked away from her child like she was returning a defective toaster. Ethan came in through the back door minutes later carrying groceries. I did not know how to tell him, but I did not need to. He saw the empty coat hook, the missing stroller, and the silence. "Where is Jess?" he asked. I looked at him. "Gone." His face went blank. "What do you mean gone?" "She said she cannot do this. That she is still young. She left." He dropped the grocery bag. Eggs shattered across the floor. He just stood there. Then his knees gave out right there on my kitchen tile. "She left him," he whispered like the words tasted rotten. "She left both of you." He rocked forward, hands to his face. "She did not even say goodbye." No. That night, Ethan did not speak much. He just sat beside Aiden's crib for hours. I found him there at 3 o'clock in the morning, asleep on the floor, still wearing his shoes. I thought things could not get worse. I thought Jessica walking out would be the lowest point, but I was wrong. 3 months later, I was back in that same kitchen. The grocery bag this time was mine. The eggs were whole, but the phone call I got that afternoon shattered everything just as fast. "Marlene Patterson," the voice said. "This is Officer Delaney. I am calling about your son, Ethan." And just like that, I lost my child, too. They said he had been drinking alone. His car wrapped around a tree 15 minutes from our home. He died on impact. I remember sitting down slowly on the edge of the bathtub. Not to cry, just to breathe. Aiden was napping in the next room. And all I could think was, I am all he has left. Jessica never called, not for the funeral. Not to check in, not to offer so much as a question. She vanished. But Aiden stayed, and I stayed for him. What choice did I have? I buried my son in a cheap gray suit, the only one that fit him after he lost so much weight. The funeral home smelled of flowers, but all I remember is the weight of Aiden's body on my hip, limp and heavy. his head tucked into my neck as if he knew something permanent had changed. The priest said Ethan had found peace. I sat there thinking, no, he found the nearest exit. When the service ended, people came up to hug me, say how strong I was. I nodded, accepted their pity, but my mind was racing. Where would I go from here? What happens to Aiden now? Jessica did not call. Not once. Not when the obituary ran. Not when Ethan's name showed up in the local paper. I waited for something, an email, a message, anything that said she'd heard, that maybe she would step up, even for 5 minutes. But silence has a way of screaming louder than words. 3 days after the funeral, a woman from Child Protective Services knocked on my door. She looked young, polite, clipboard in hand. "We just need to check on Aiden's welfare," she said. I almost laughed. "Where were you when he lost both his parents?" She cleared her throat. "We understand the situation is sensitive, but we have procedures." I let her inside. Aiden was in his playpen watching cartoons with his little fists curled tight. The caseworker crouched beside him and asked him his name, but he just stared blankly. "He does not speak," I told her. She nodded and scribbled something down. "And your legal status? Are you his guardian?" I hesitated. I am his grandmother, but not his legal guardian. I never thought I needed paperwork to love a child. That earned me a tight smile. "You do now." She left me with a folder of forms and a warning. If the mother resurfaces and you are not legally documented, she could take custody. That night, I sat at the kitchen table with the paperwork spread out in front of me next to a cup of lukewarm tea. My hand hovered over the first page for too long. Could Jessica really come back and take him? After disappearing, after abandoning them both, I knew the law did not always care about morality. The next day I started the process. It was slow. Appointments, evaluations, letters of recommendation. I had to prove I was fit to raise a child with special needs, even though I was the only one who had ever stayed. Weeks passed. Then months. One cold Thursday morning, while waiting for Aiden's physical therapist to arrive, I got a phone call. An old friend from church. "Marlene, have you seen this?" She sent me a link. I opened it with shaky hands. It was Jessica's wedding, not just a post. An entire gallery. White dress, beachfront photos, champagne. Her new husband was a real estate developer. His name was Richard. They looked perfect. The caption under the main photo read, "New beginnings. No regrets." I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I clicked on her profile. She had moved to Florida. She had a yacht. She had stepchildren. And she had erased Aiden from her entire life. I wanted to scream, but instead I turned my phone off and sat in silence until the therapist knocked on the door. That night I did not sleep. I kept hearing her voice from all those years ago. "I am still young. I cannot live like this." I looked over at Aiden, sleeping peacefully, his feeding pump humming beside him. I tucked his blanket tighter. "You are not a burden," I whispered. "You are the reason I keep going." The next morning I called my lawyer. "I want to make it permanent," I said. "Guardianship, adoption, whatever it takes." He paused. "Marlene, that is a big step." "I know, but I am not risking her showing up and trying to take what she threw away." And so I started the real fight, the one Jessica never saw coming. But 3 years later, her name came back into my life. Not through a call, not through a knock. It showed up on a letter from a law office addressed to me with her name at the top. I held the letter in both hands, the paper trembling even though my grip was firm. The envelope had no return address, just a firm logo and a typed name I had not seen in years. Jessica Benson. I sat down before opening it, heart pounding like it already knew what I was about to read. "Dear Mrs. C. Patterson," it began. Not Marlene. Not Mom. Not even hello. Just a cold formal greeting and 2 pages of legalese. She was getting remarried. Or rather, she had already gotten remarried. The letter was a courtesy notification that her legal name had changed. A name I had not heard before. Richard Benson's wife. A note at the bottom mentioned she hoped to reconnect at a better time. Reconnecting as if we had simply drifted apart over brunch and text messages. I folded the letter slowly, placed it back into the envelope, and pushed it aside. My tea had gone cold. Aiden was in the next room watching cartoons with his legs crossed like he always did when he was calm. I stared at him from the doorway, his head tilted slightly to one side, his eyes following the bright screen, completely unaware of the storm blowing back toward us. 2 days later, it was Margaret, my oldest friend, who called me with the first real punch to the gut. "Marlene," she whispered over the line. "I think you need to see this." She sent me a link. My thumb hovered for a second before I tapped it. My stomach dropped before the page even loaded. Jessica was smiling back at me through a sea of champagne glasses and sunset beach lighting. A lace wedding gown, bare feet in the sand. Her hair styled perfectly. Every image filtered to glow like a dream. Her caption read, "Best day of my life, new chapter. No regrets." I stared at the screen, lips pressed tight. Not one photo of Aiden. Not one word about her first marriage. Nothing. She had erased us completely. Another tap opened her profile. There were dozens of photos, luxury vacations, designer bags, dinners that looked like museum exhibits. One showed her holding the hand of a little girl with blonde curls and a flower crown. "She calls her my girl," Margaret said quietly, "like she's hers." My mouth went dry. That is not her child. No, Richard's daughter from his first marriage. Jessica looked happier than I had ever seen her, effortlessly at ease, posing like she had never touched a feeding tube or sat in a doctor's waiting room, like she had never wiped drool from Aiden's chin or changed his nighttime diapers. Because she hadn't. That was me. That had always been me. I set the phone down and walked straight to the photo shelf, our family wall, the one with Ethan's graduation photo, Aiden's baby pictures, even that awkward one of the three of us from his first Halloween. I ran my fingers along each frame. She was in one photo, just one. I pulled it down and slid it into the back of the drawer. I was done pretending. That evening, I sat on the floor beside Aiden as I adjusted the brace on his foot. He leaned into me, humming softly through his nose. I kissed his head and whispered, "You are the only family I will ever fight for." But deep down, I could not shake the feeling that something was coming. A few days later at the grocery store, I bumped into a woman I barely recognized, an old coworker of Jessica's. We made awkward small talk. Then she dropped it. "She really hit the jackpot, huh?" I turned, eyebrows raised. "Jessica," she continued, "married that rich guy. Owns half the condos down by the marina. She owns them. Well, not on paper. But you know how it goes. She is living the dream." I nodded politely, then left my cart half full and walked out. By the time I got home, my hands were shaking. I knew exactly what this was. She had run from the hard life, found a man who would fund the easy one. And now, with Ethan gone, and Aiden quietly building something beautiful, she would be back. Not for him. Never for him. I stood in the kitchen with my keys still in my hand and whispered to myself, "She is coming for the money." I stood at the kitchen counter peeling carrots, half listening to the radio, and half watching Aiden through the open doorway. He had his headphones on, tapping gently on his communication tablet, focused and peaceful. That boy could concentrate for hours when he was in the zone. I had just begun slicing when I heard the mail slot creak open and the flap hit the floor. The envelope was thick, expensive paper, a logo I recognized instantly, something corporate legal. I wiped my hands on my apron and opened it slowly, careful not to tear anything. My heart started racing before I finished the first paragraph. Jessica had hired a lawyer. The letter was formal, carefully worded, and full of language meant to intimidate. Phrases like maternal rights, potential for reconnection, and emotional harm from separation jumped out at me. She wanted contact. She wanted meetings. She wanted to talk about Aiden's future. I grabbed the edge of the table to steady myself. "No," I whispered, my voice cracking in the empty room. I read it again, slower this time. Nothing about regret, no apology, just a strategic attempt to slide back in now that the hard work was done. Now that Aiden had a name in the community, now that the little boy she had abandoned was starting to be noticed. I wanted to scream, but instead, I picked up the phone and dialed the number I had memorized like scripture. "Charles," I said, trying to keep the shake out of my voice. "Marlene, what happened?" "I got something in the mail. From her attorney." He didn't ask who. He knew. "Read it to me." I did. He was quiet for a moment. Then, "Do you still have the surrender papers?" I turned and walked straight to the hall closet, pulled out the fireproof box and opened the third folder. "I do," I said. "Signed and notarized. She gave up her rights when she left." "Good," he said. "Bring them to my office this afternoon." That afternoon, I sat across from Charles, watching him place the original surrender documents side by side with the new demand letter. His eyes narrowed with each line he read. She really thought no one would remember, he said finally. But we documented everything, every meeting, every signature. She wants in now because Aiden is doing well. She wants in, he said, because she sees something to gain. I looked out his office window, watching a mother wrangle a toddler across the street. She never even called after Ethan died. She is not here for love, Marlene. She is here for opportunity. The memory hit me then. Jessica sitting on my old sofa the day she left, staring at her reflection in the dark TV screen while she adjusted her earrings. I am still young. I cannot live like this. That was her goodbye. Now she wanted to rewrite the ending. I turned back to Charles. Can she reopen the case? He shook his head. Not if we're proactive. We file a motion to reinforce the termination and prevent contact. It is rare, but in this case the original paperwork is airtight. Do it, I said. Do it fast. When I got home, I walked straight to Aiden's room. He looked up, saw the worry on my face, and tapped a few keys on his tablet. Is something wrong? I sat down beside him, brushing his hair back gently. Someone tried to stir up old dust, sweetheart, but it will not touch you. Promise. He stared at me for a moment, eyes steady. Then he typed again. Will she come here? I hesitated. She might try, but we are ready for her. I do not want to see her. You do not have to ever. He looked down, then typed one more message. She is a stranger. You are my real family. My eyes burned, but I nodded. And you are mine. I thought it was over. I thought we had sealed the door tight. But 2 mornings later, a new letter arrived. It was not from her lawyer. It was from her personally, and it was worse than the first. I was folding laundry when Aiden rolled into the room, tablet balanced on his lap like always. He had that determined look again, the one that made him seem so much older than 16. His eyes followed my hands as I paired socks, his fingers moving across the device in steady rhythm. Then his robotic voice filled the quiet room. I need to tell you something. I looked up. What is it, sweetheart? I made something. An app? I smiled. Another one. You have been busy. This one is different, he said, his expression serious. Talks for people like me. I stopped folding. You already have that software, honey. No, this one uses feelings, faces. I designed it so children who cannot use words can still show how they feel. My throat tightened. I sat down slowly on the edge of the couch. Show me. He opened the app. A grid of cartoon faces filled the screen. Joy, pain, fear, laughter. All designed in Aiden's precise, colorful style. He tapped one icon and a little boy's voice said, I am tired. Another one smiled and said, I love you. I blinked hard. You did this by yourself? He nodded. People online are using it already. Schools too. Someone from a company called this morning. They want to buy it. Buy it? My voice came out barely above a whisper. They offered money, a lot. I stared at him, trying to process it all. For years, I had watched him struggle to type a full sentence, to move his hands without pain. Now here he was creating something that could change thousands of lives. My sweet, quiet boy who could not walk without help was giving a voice to children around the world. He tapped again. I am scared. Why? I asked. Because it is real now. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. The glow of his tablet flickered faintly under his bedroom door. He never stopped working. While most teenagers were sneaking out or playing games, Aiden was building software that gave people hope. It made me proud beyond words. But deep inside, a faint unease started growing. Success brings light, and it also attracts shadows. A month later, everything changed. A news crew arrived at the house after his app went viral. They interviewed him, recorded the way he used the tablet to communicate. They called him the Miracle Kid. The headline ran everywhere. Teen with cerebral palsy creates life-changing app. After the interview, I poured him a cup of hot chocolate and handed him a blanket. You did beautifully, I said, beaming. You even remembered to smile, he typed. I smiled because you were proud. My heart swelled. Always, darling. Always. The following week, his story aired on national television. I thought it would be a small segment, but it spread like wildfire. My phone would not stop ringing. Charities, sponsors, journalists, all wanting a piece of Aiden. By the end of the month, Licensing deals and donations filled his account. The lawyer said it was over 2 million already. It should have been a happy time. It was for a while, but I could not shake the thought that someone else was also watching. Jessica, I had not heard from her since her lawyer's failed attempt to reopen custody. But fame travels fast, especially on the internet. I told myself she would stay in her gilded world, sipping champagne and pretending we never existed. I was wrong. It started with a phone call I almost ignored. Unknown number. I was in the kitchen cooking soup when it rang again. On the third ring I picked up. Hello? A pause, then a woman's voice, smooth and careful. Marlene, it is Jessica. My breath caught in my throat. I gripped the counter. Why are you calling me? I saw Aiden on television. Her tone carried a strange pride, like she was claiming a trophy she had abandoned years ago. He has done so well. You have done well. Do not do that, I snapped. Do not act like you were part of it. I just want to talk to him, she said softly. No, he is my son. You made that statement false the day you walked out, I said. You left him with a note. Remember that? Silence stretched for several seconds. Then she said, people change. Some do, I said quietly. You do not. I could visit, she offered. We could talk. Start over. Do not finish that sentence. My hands were trembling, but my voice stayed steady. He does not need another ghost pretending to care. She exhaled sharply, all sweetness gone. You cannot keep him from me forever. I laughed bitterly. Watch me. When I hung up, my whole body felt drained. I turned off the stove, walked to Aiden's room, and stood there watching him work. He looked up and smiled, unaware of the danger circling again. I smiled back, but my mind was racing. I had seen that kind of look before, the greedy interest, the false affection. Jessica was not calling because of love. She had seen what the rest of the world had seen, a story worth money. I closed his door softly, pressed my hand to my chest, and took a deep breath. The peace we had built was about to be tested, and the person who once walked out on her disabled child was coming back for what she thought she was owed. I heard the knock before I saw her. 3 quick taps, too confident to be neighborly, too polite to be official. I froze mid-step in the hallway, one hand clutching the laundry basket against my hip. Through the side window, I caught a glimpse of blonde hair, a purse that cost more than my car, and posture that said she came expecting something. I set the basket down slowly and opened the door. Jessica stood there, head slightly tilted, lips painted into a perfect pink smile. Marlena. My chest tightened. What are you doing here? I just want to talk, she said, stepping back like she knew I would not invite her in. Not a fight, just a conversation. I stared at her for a long moment. Her skin was smooth, her nails manicured, her hair carefully curled. Not a single trace of the woman who once slammed a door and left her son behind without even checking if he had enough formula to get through the day. You came all this way, I said. But not to see him. She blinked. Of course I want to see him. No, you want to be seen seeing him, I said. There's a difference. Her face tensed just for a second. Marlene, I made mistakes. I see that now. Do you? I was overwhelmed. I was young. You were 27, I snapped. Old enough to know what a child is. Old enough to know you do not get to walk away and circle back when it is convenient. Her smile faltered. Look, I am not here to rehash the past. No, you are here because you saw a bank account tied to his name. That is not true. I laughed short, sharp. You signed away your rights. You wrote it down in ink. You said you could not live like this. Do you remember that? Jessica shifted her weight, adjusted her purse strap. I was going through something. And now you are going through money, I imagine. I came to make peace. You came to make sure you were not left out of something profitable. I am still his mother, she said. My voice dropped to a whisper. You are a stranger. Behind me, I heard the gentle hum of Aiden's tablet from the living room. His communication pad made a soft chime as he navigated it. Jessica's eyes flicked toward the sound. Is that? Yes, I said. He is here. He has always been here. She stepped forward. Can I see him? No, Marlene, please. I stared at her, trying to find even a flicker of remorse behind her perfectly curated expression. Do you know how many surgeries he has had? Her lips parted. Do you know how long it took him to eat solid food? She said nothing. Do you know the first sentence he programmed into that tablet? She looked away. I stepped out onto the porch, closing the door behind me. I asked him years ago if he missed you. Do you want to know what he said? Jessica's eyes welled up. I was broken. No, I said quietly. You were selfish, her chin lifted, mouth hardening. You do not get to judge me. You have no idea what I went through, and you have no idea what he went through. So that makes us even, does it? She was silent. I crossed my arms. He learned to tie his shoes with one hand. He learned to type with his eyes. He built a voice out of code and stubbornness. And he did it all without you. She exhaled slowly, then said, I just want to know him. I shook my head. You do not deserve to. A sound behind me made me turn. Aiden had rolled to the doorway, tablet glowing on his tray. He pressed a button. Who is that? Jessica's face changed. Her mouth fell open. Aiden. Another button. Is she someone I should know? Her eyes filled. Oh my God. He speaks. I turned to him, knelt beside his chair, and gently placed my hand on his. No, baby. She is nobody. He pressed one more button. I am going back to work. His chair turned, and he wheeled himself away without another glance. Jessica's hand rose toward him, then dropped. I stood up. You can leave now. She blinked fast. That was him? That was really? Yes. I thought I had more time. You used all your time up when you walked away. She looked like she wanted to argue, but nothing came out. Her eyes darted back to the door, then to me. I am not going to beg, she said. I nodded. That is the first honest thing you have said today. I watched her walk down the steps back to her sleek car parked in front of my modest garden. But as she opened the driver's door, she turned back with a new expression, one I had not seen since the day she left. Entitlement calculation, and that was when I knew she was not finished. The envelope came on a Tuesday. Thick paper, no return address, just my name, Marlene, written in the kind of neat handwriting only lawyers use. I opened it with a butter knife, standing by the sink, tea steeping behind me. The first line knocked the air clean out of my lungs. Petition for visitation and shared custody. I read it again, slower. Then again, every word sharpened the pounding in my head. Jessica was suing us, not calling, not begging, not apologizing, suing. I stood there gripping the counter with both hands. She really went and did it. Aiden rolled into the room. His tablet spoke before I could say anything. What is wrong? I turned toward him, forcing my voice calm. Nothing you need to worry about. He stared at me. He always knew when I was lying. He tapped again. Is it about her? I nodded. She filed a court case. She wants to see you. Possibly more. He blinked. No emotion showed, but his fingers moved faster than usual. Can she do that? I do not know yet. I am going to call Eric. Eric was not just any lawyer. He was my late husband's best friend and Aiden's godfather. He had seen what Jessica did. He buried our son. He stayed when she left. I called. Eric. She is suing. Silence. I just got the paperwork. She wants visitation. She says Aiden deserves to know both parents. Eric exhaled heavily. She is using the press, Marlene. I have seen her interviews. She is painting herself as a grieving mother who made a youthful mistake. She gave him up. She is pretending she did not. We need proof. I have the note. Good. You need to find anything else. Emails, texts, any documents where she gave up her rights or refused contact. I ended the call and turned back to Aiden. He was already typing something. Do I have to go to court? My heart broke a little. I do not want you anywhere near that mess, but we might have to. He stared at the table. His next message came slower. Why does she want me now? I did not answer. I did not have to. He knew. We spent the next few days pulling everything. The old fireproof box under my bed. The scans I had kept on my drive. The voicemail she left 3 years ago when she said, I do not need him. You wanted him. You raised him. I watched Eric flip through the evidence in our living room. Glasses sliding down his nose. This is solid. She is going to try emotional appeal, but we have facts. He looked at Aiden. You sure you want to go public with this? Aiden pressed his tablet. She went public first. The day of the court hearing, I dressed Aiden in a collared shirt he hated and brushed back my hair the best I could. I walked into that courthouse with shaking hands and a steel spine. Jessica was already there, flanked by 2 lawyers wearing soft colors, holding tissues like she expected to cry. She looked at Aiden and smiled. "Look how tall you are." Aiden ignored her. He pressed his tablet. "We are not friends." Her face cracked for a second, just a flicker. Then she turned to the judge. I was young. I was scared, but I never stopped loving him. Eric stood slowly. "Your Honor, we have a handwritten note from Mrs. Z. Jessica Brooks stating, and I quote, 'I am still young. I cannot live like this.'" She left that note next to her son's crib and disappeared. She never made a single child support payment, never visited, never sent a birthday card. Jessica interrupted, tears forming. "Because I was afraid. I thought I had ruined everything." Eric cut her off with a quiet, firm voice. "You only came back after he became successful. That is not motherhood. That is opportunism." Aiden lifted his tablet. "I know who raised me." I sat there watching her crumble under her own performance. Her tears did not match the tight line of her jaw. Her sobs were too rehearsed. The judge reviewed every paper, every email, every time-stamped message. Hours passed like minutes. Then the ruling came. Visitation denied. Custodial rights remained solely with Ms. Marlene Harris. The court sees no evidence to suggest reintroduction would serve the child's emotional or physical well-being. Jessica gasped like someone slapped her. Outside the courtroom, she followed us to the elevator. "Marlene, please. This is not over." I turned, locked eyes with her. It never even started. I had just finished folding the last stack of towels when the knock came again. This one was softer, hesitant. I paused, towel in hand, every muscle bracing for more chaos. When I opened the door, it was not Jessica. It was a courier. He handed me a padded envelope and said my name like it was just another delivery. I signed without a word and shut the door with my foot. I stood there staring at it for a long time. Then I tore it open. Inside was a handwritten letter. Not printed, not typed, written. That alone made my stomach turn. The opening line told me everything I needed to know. "Marlene, since the court refused to see reason, I'm writing this in hope you will." My hands trembled. I sat down on the couch and read every single word. "You've always hated me. I knew that from the start. You never thought I was good enough for Daniel. And maybe I wasn't. But you don't know what it was like to hold that baby and realize something was wrong."
Something permanent.
I was terrified. I stopped reading. My chest felt tight, like her words were reaching out and squeezing the air from my lungs. Picked it back up. "You didn't give birth to him. You didn't carry the fear that I did. You didn't watch him fail to cry properly after he was born. That kind of thing shatters a woman. I had dreams too, Marlene. I didn't sign up for this life." My eyes burned. I had sat up for months learning feeding schedules, slept on hospital chairs, celebrated when Aiden learned to push a single button. Not because it made him special, but because it made him proud. And now she was trying to use the one thing she abandoned as her excuse. "He got your way. You kept him. You raised him. And now that he's rich, suddenly I'm the villain. I just want to be part of his success. That's not selfish. It's natural." I stopped reading again. I was afraid if I read further I might scream. She wanted credit. She wanted legacy. She wanted to benefit from what he had done. After walking away from the diapers, the surgeries, the nights where he would wake up crying and could not explain why, I finished the letter slowly. "If you keep turning him against me, just remember I tried. Maybe not the way you wanted, but I did. And if I decide to fight this again, don't be surprised. I will always be his mother whether you like it or not." She signed her name in cursive like it meant something. I sat there staring at it, heart thudding, breath shallow. I picked up my phone and called Eric. "She sent a letter." "Of course she did," he muttered, trying to manipulate the narrative. "She said she's still his mother." "She is not," he said. "Not legally, not emotionally, not in any world that matters." I felt the rage simmering beneath my skin. It had not been rage before, just sadness, tiredness. But now I wanted her to regret this. I scanned the letter, snapped a picture, and sent it to Eric. "Can we use this?" "Absolutely. This is the worst thing she could have written." I hung up. Aiden had been quiet through all of it. I walked to his room. He was at his desk reading through code, his tablet pushed to the side. Sweetheart. He turned, raising his eyebrows. She wrote a letter. He held my gaze. Noi mouschen. Then he grabbed the tablet and typed. Can I read it? I hesitated, but then handed it to him. He deserved the truth more than anyone. He read each word with a stillness that terrified me. Then he put the letter down and pressed a single button. I want to reply. I leaned into her. He nodded. I waited as he typed, his fingers slow, deliberate. I am not a trophy. I am not your comeback story. I am not your regret to parade. You walked. I ran. And I won. Goodbye. He handed it back to me, then turned his chair and went right back to work. My throat tightened. I placed the letter into a folder, sealed it, and labeled it in bold ink. Evidence, final. But deep down I knew it was not final. Not with her. Not yet. It was raining again. The kind of rain that hung heavy over the whole day. The kind that made you feel like something was coming. I stood by the kitchen window watching the drops slide down the glass. When the knock came, 3 sharp taps. I did not move. Then a 4th softer, like it was testing me. I turned and walked to the door slowly, already knowing who it was. Jessica. She looked different. Hair curled like she had come from a salon. Jewelry too much for the weather. And not a single wrinkle out of place on her cream-colored coat. But her eyes were still hollow. I need to talk to you, she said. I folded my arms. Say it from there. I deserve a conversation. No, you deserve nothing. But I'm feeling generous today. Her jaw twitched. Fine. I want to see Aiden. No, I gave birth to him. And then you gave him away like a coat that did not fit anymore. I was young. I was scared. You were selfish. She shifted her weight. I've changed.
I've grown.
You think I have not paid for it? You think sleeping next to a man twice my age for 15 years was a dream? I raised my eyebrows. Sounds like a choice. Her face darkened. He died. He left me with nothing. There it was. The reason she had come. Not love, not guilt. Desperation. I sighed. You thought Aiden would be your next gold mine. He's my son. He is mine. Not by birth but by heart. By the surgeries, the sleepless nights, the feeding tubes, the school battles. You do not get to call yourself a mother because you bled once. She took a shaky breath. Please let me just talk to him. I opened the door wider. Aiden, he was already there standing behind me. Calm, silent, she smiled, stepping forward. Baby, he held up a hand. Then, with the tablet in one hand, he typed. Do not call me that. Her smile dropped. He typed again. You signed papers. You made a choice. You do not get to undo it because your bank account dried up. Jessica's voice cracked. I regret it every day. You should, I said quietly. Aiden looked at her for a long time. Then he typed slowly, one line at a time. I used to wonder what I did wrong. Why I was not enough. Why you left. I thought maybe if I tried harder you would come back. But now I see. I was always better off without you. Jessica's hand shook. You do not mean that. He nodded, then pressed one final message. This conversation is over. She stared at us like she was waiting for someone to crack. But we stood there, 2 people she had thrown away, now stronger than she could stand to see. She turned, walking down the porch steps, shoes clicking against wet wood. Just before she reached the street, I called out, Jessica. She paused. I held up the envelope she had mailed days ago. We submitted your letter to the judge. Her face froze. Along with all your emails, messages, and that little tantrum you threw at the bakery. You cannot do that. We already did. The judge dismissed your case permanently. Your appeal failed before it started. She blinked fast. I had a right. No, you had a chance. And you abandoned it 14 years ago. Her mouth opened but nothing came out. Then her shoulders dropped and she walked away. This time without drama. No screaming, no threats. Just quiet steps disappearing into the rain. I closed the door. Aiden went back to his room without saying anything. He did not need to. I stood in the living room, hand still on the knob, breathing in the silence. It was not victory. It was peace, hard-earned and long overdue.